The sun hung low over Valantria, painting the sky in shades of deep orange and violet. Its twin moons were just beginning to rise, casting a soft silver glow over the grand city of Carental. The streets were quiet, but tension lingered in the air. For the people of Valantria, the war against the humans had left more than scars on the land. It had shaken their pride. High in the marble halls of the council palace, Lyra, a young Valantrian noblewoman, paced back and forth. Her long silver hair reflected the fading light, and her sharp eyes were filled with anger. Today was the day she would face judgment for her defiance. She had spoken out in the council chamber, criticizing the peace treaty that forced Valantria to submit to human authority. Many had called her reckless, and now she would pay the price. The doors of the council chamber opened with a slow, echoing sound. Lyra straightened, her chest rising with determination. The room was filled with officials in their ceremonial robes, their expressions a mix of pride, fear, and curiosity. At the center sat the High Chancellor, a tall, stern figure whose voice carried the weight of the law. "Lyra of House Valon," he said, his tone cold and unyielding. "Your actions have insulted not only the council, but your people. You have defied the humans and undermined the peace we have worked so hard to maintain." "I speak the truth," Lyra said sharply. Her voice was steady, though her heart raced. "Peace built on fear is not real peace. Humans are conquerors, not allies." Murmurs filled the room, but the High Chancellor did not flinch. "Your words have consequences," he said. "The Council has decided that you will serve under human supervision. You will be sent to the frontier outpost on the planet Aurelios to serve under Captain Adrian Cole. There, you will learn respect, obedience, and the ways of humanity." The chamber fell silent. Lyra felt a wave of shock and fury. "Serve a human?" she exclaimed. "I am not a servant. I will not obey any human." The High Chancellor's gaze was unyielding. "This is not a request. It is the law. Refusal will bring harsher consequences. You will go willingly, or the Council will ensure your compliance by force." Lyra's mind raced. She had always prided herself on her strength and intelligence, and now she was being sent far from her home, treated as if she were nothing more than property. She could feel the weight of every eye in the chamber. Some looked at her with pity, others with admiration. But none could help her now. The preparations were swift. Guards escorted her to a waiting shuttle, a sleek human vessel waiting to transport her across the stars. Lyra's hands were clenched into fists. She refused to bow or show fear, though her heart was heavy with anger and uncertainty. The shuttle lifted off, and the city of Carental shrank beneath her. Valantria, with its towering spires and glittering streets, seemed like a world away. She had been raised to believe that humans were brutal conquerors, that they could not be trusted, and now she would live among them. The journey to Aurelios was long. Lyra spent the hours staring out the viewport, watching stars drift past like distant sparks of light. She could not imagine what awaited her at the frontier outpost. The stories she had heard about humans painted them as cold, logical, and unfeeling. Yet a small part of her wondered if there might be more to them than the tales she had been told. When the shuttle finally landed, Lyra was escorted through the outpost gates. The planet was harsh but beautiful, with rocky plains stretching to distant mountains and rivers of silver reflecting the pale light of Aurelios's sun. Humans and a few other alien species moved about the outpost, tending to tasks and machinery. At the center of the outpost, a man waited. Captain Adrian Cole was tall, with a strong, confident stance. His dark hair was short and neat, and his eyes, a deep shade of brown, seemed to look straight through her defenses. He was calm, but there was an intensity to his presence that made Lyra's jaw tighten. "You must be Lyra," Adrian said, his voice even and steady. "I am Captain Cole. Welcome to Aurelios." "I am not here to be welcomed," Lyra said, her tone sharp. "I am here because your people forced me." Adrian studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I understand. I am not here to force you. You will not be treated unfairly, but I will expect respect and cooperation." This is how we survive here. You are not a servant in the traditional sense. You will contribute to the outpost as a valuable member, or you will not thrive. Lyra's eyes narrowed. You do not frighten me, human. Adrian's expression softened slightly. I am not trying to frighten you. I am trying to help you understand your place here. You are far from home, and this world can be unforgiving if you do not learn to work with others. Her anger did not fade, but she sensed that Adrian's approach was different from what she had expected. He did not treat her as property, nor did he belittle her. Instead, he spoke with calm authority, expecting her to rise to the challenge. Over the next few days, Lyra was shown around the outpost. She was assigned quarters modest but comfortable, and she was given tasks that matched her intelligence rather than menial labor. Adrian observed her closely, assigning her to assist with research, technology maintenance, and exploration missions. At first, Lyra resisted. She refused to speak to the human workers and ignored the tasks assigned to her, claiming that she would do nothing until she was free to return home. Yet Adrian did not punish her. Instead, he continued to give her responsibilities, showing patience she had never expected. One evening, as the twin moons of Aurelios rose over the rocky plains, Adrian found her in the observation deck, staring out at the horizon. You are not happy here, he said simply. No, she admitted, surprising herself. She had not expected to speak the truth. I am angry. I have been forced into a life I do not want. Adrian nodded. Anger is natural. You feel betrayed, displaced, and judged unfairly. But anger alone will not help you survive. You have intelligence and courage, Lyra. Use them. She looked at him, unsure whether to trust the human before her. Why do you care? She asked. Because, Adrian said, I see potential in people, even when they resist it. I see who you are, not what your government says you must be. That is all anyone can ask of another. Lyra felt a strange warmth in her chest, a feeling she could not name. For the first time since being sent to Aurelios, she considered that not all humans were as she had been taught to believe. The days passed, and small changes began to take root. Lyra still resisted fully following orders, but she completed tasks with precision, showing her skill and intelligence. The other humans began to notice her abilities and, slowly, they started to treat her with a mixture of curiosity and respect. One afternoon, a critical power system failed in the outpost, threatening the life support systems. Panic spread among the workers, but Lyra stepped forward, using her knowledge of alien engineering to repair the system. She worked with humans, giving clear instructions and coordinating efforts. When the system came back online, the outpost erupted in relieved cheers. Adrian gave her a small nod of approval, and though she would never admit it aloud, Lyra felt a sense of accomplishment. That night, as she lay in her quarters, she thought of her home on Velantria. She was still far from free, but for the first time, she considered that survival here might not be a punishment. It might be a chance to discover something new. Yet the anger in her heart had not fully faded. She still viewed humans as conquerors, and she still resisted fully trusting Adrian. But beneath the anger, a small seed of curiosity had been planted. What kind of man was this human who treated her not as a slave, but as an equal? And in that thought, a quiet question arose in Lyra's mind. Could someone she had been taught to despise actually become someone she could respect, maybe even care for? The night on Aurelios was silent except for the soft hum of the outpost systems and the distant howls of the alien winds outside. Lyra stared at the twin moons, knowing that her journey had only begun. She had been given as punishment, sent to serve a human. Yet somewhere deep inside, a spark of possibility had been lit, one that could change not only her future but the future of both her people and the humans. And so, under the pale light of Aurelios, Lyra made her first silent vow. She would survive, she would learn, and she would never allow herself to be underestimated again. The battle between anger and curiosity had begun, and neither she nor Adrian could know where it would lead. Days passed on Aurelios, each blending into the next with the rhythm of the outpost's activity. Lyra moved among the humans with careful precision, performing her tasks without complaint, though her pride and anger still simmered beneath the surface. She had learned to repair machinery, manage data systems, and even assist in exploration planning. Yet she remained distant, treating humans with formal politeness rather than warmth. Captain Adrian Cole observed her from a distance. He had learned early not to force her into obedience. Force would only breed resentment. Instead, he allowed her to take initiative, hoping she would discover the value of cooperation on her own. Adrian was not one to gamble lightly, yet with Lyra, he sensed a rare intelligence and courage that deserved trust. One morning, the alarm blared through the outpost. An environmental scanner had detected an unstable gas pocket in one of the northern valleys, a dangerous place where exploration teams often ventured. Adrian turned to Lyra. "You will accompany me," he said. "Your knowledge of alien environments will be useful." Lyra's eyes narrowed. She had hoped to avoid such direct involvement. "I am not your assistant," she said sharply. "You are not my assistant," Adrian replied evenly. "You are a member of this team. Your skills matter. I will need you to act as an equal, not a subordinate." She stared at him, unsure if his words were meant to challenge her pride or genuinely respect her. Finally, with a reluctant nod, she agreed. The journey to the valley was tense. Lyra and Adrian walked side by side, each observing the landscape with care. The valley was a dangerous mix of jagged rocks, unstable terrain, and strange, luminescent flora. Even the humans moved cautiously, aware that Aurelios could be unforgiving to those who underestimated it. "Tell me," Adrian said, breaking the silence, "what is it like on your home planet?" "Velantria." Lyra stiffened, reluctant to share. "It is different. Beautiful but rigid. We are taught loyalty and pride above all. Outsiders are not easily trusted." Adrian nodded. "That sounds like this world too in some ways. You cannot survive without trust here, yet trust is hard to give." She looked at him surprised. "You understand that?" "I understand it more than you think," Adrian said with a small smile. "I've seen people judged by their past or their appearance instead of their actions. That is something I do not believe in." For a moment, the walls around Lyra's heart softened. She did not trust easily, and yet, here was a human who spoke not with condescension but understanding. She said nothing, but she listened. As they approached the gas pocket, the ground trembled slightly. Adrian signaled for everyone to halt. He gestured to Lyra. "You will help me assess the risks," he said. Lyra's training as a noblewoman had included knowledge of alien terrains, survival techniques, and strategy. She stepped forward, her hands steady, her mind alert. Together, she and Adrian measured the instability, marking safe paths and advising the exploration team. When the task was complete, Adrian clapped his hands once. "Excellent work, Lyra. Your insight may have saved lives today." She glanced at him, a flicker of surprise in her eyes. "I did what was necessary." Adrian's smile widened, though it was not mocking. "Yes, and that is exactly the point. Courage and intelligence matter, not fear or obedience." That evening, the team celebrated their success quietly in the outpost's common hall. Humans and a few alien workers gathered, sharing meals and laughter. Lyra observed from a distance, feeling out of place. She had been taught that humans were conquerors, but here they were, simple and kind in their celebration. Adrian approached her, carrying a tray with food. "Come," he said gently. "You deserve to eat and rest. You worked hard today." Lyra hesitated, then accepted. They sat together at a small table, the noise of laughter and conversation surrounding them. For the first time, she noticed how humans shared stories and jokes freely, how their faces lit up with enjoyment. It was not a display of weakness, as she had assumed, but a sign of connection. "You seem surprised," Adrian said, noticing her silence. "I did not expect this," Lyra admitted. "I expected humans to be harsh." "Proud, yes, but harsh," Adrian nodded. "Some are. Some are not. We are not all the same. You will find, if you observe carefully, that your judgment may change with experience." Lyra looked down at her hands. She felt a strange sense of warmth, a feeling she did not want to name. Could it be respect? Curiosity? Something more? She forced herself to remain composed, yet her thoughts lingered on Adrian's calm eyes and patient words. Over the next week, small moments continued to shift the dynamic between them. Lyra assisted with technical tasks, offered insight during exploration planning, and even helped teach a young human recruit about alien languages. Each time, Adrian recognized her contributions and praised her efforts publicly. Slowly, the humans began to see her not as a foreign noble forced into servitude, but as an intelligent, capable ally. One evening, a violent storm swept across the valley. Lightning arced through the sky, striking distant rock formations, and high winds rattled the outpost. Lyra had been assigned to monitor the communication systems, ensuring that the storm did not disrupt critical messages. Suddenly, the system failed. Panic spread among the operators. Without communication, the outpost would be isolated, vulnerable to accidents and supply issues. Lyra's mind raced. She studied the system, analyzing the components, and realized that a minor fault in the storm shielding had caused a chain reaction. Working quickly, she coordinated the repair, instructing human technicians and adapting alien methods to stabilize the system. Sweat dripped from her brow, but she remained focused. After tense moments, the system hummed back to life. Adrian entered the control room just as the lights stabilized. "You did it," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You saved the outpost from being cut off." Lyra felt a spark of pride. For the first time since arriving, she realized that she had value here, not because of her noble title, but because of her skill and courage. "You acted as a leader," Adrian said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Not as a servant, not as a pawn. You made a difference." She looked into his eyes, unsure how to respond. Respect had begun to grow into something more complex. She did not fully understand it, nor did she wish to, but she could not deny the pull of admiration, the strange comfort of being seen as capable rather than punished. The storm passed, leaving the outpost in quiet relief. That night, Lyra walked to the observation deck alone, staring at the twin moons reflecting over the rocky plains. She thought of her home, of Volantria, and of the pride she had once held as untouchable. Here, far from home, she had learned humility and courage, and she realized that strength was not only in defiance but in understanding. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "You did well today." She turned to see Adrian standing behind her, the storm's silver light highlighting his face. "I did what I could," she replied, her voice quiet. "You did more than you know," he said. "You acted with courage and intelligence. That is not something everyone possesses." Lyra looked away, unsure how to respond. She felt her heart race, a feeling she could not name. It was not fear nor anger, but a strange mixture of admiration and curiosity. Could a human truly see her for who she was, beyond titles and punishment? Could she trust him in return? The nights passed, and each day brought new challenges and small victories. Lyra continued to learn, to assist, and to grow. And though she would never admit it, she began to anticipate Adrian's presence, not with fear, but with a cautious hope that perhaps not all humans were as she had been taught to believe. By the end of the second week, a subtle bond had formed between them. It was not yet friendship, nor was it trust in the full sense. It was something fragile, like a spark in the dark, waiting for the right moment to ignite. Both Lyra and Adrian recognized it, though neither spoke of it aloud. And so, life at the outpost settled into a careful rhythm, each day bringing lessons, challenges, and moments of unexpected connection. Lyra, once filled with anger and defiance, began to see that perhaps this punishment could become something more, a chance to understand, to survive, and maybe even to find a path she had never imagined. Under the twin moons of Aurelios, with wind whispering across the rocky plains, Lyra realized that the battle within her heart had begun. She had come as a rebel, a noblewoman forced into service, but slowly and without her full consent, she was becoming something new, a person who could face the unknown, not as a prisoner, but as a force to be reckoned with. And for the first time, she wondered not how she would escape, but how she could grow, survive, and perhaps even thrive in this alien world alongside humans who were not what she had feared them to be. Life at the Aurelios outpost had begun to settle into a routine, but peace was a fragile thing on the frontier. The rocky plains stretched endlessly, dotted with strange alien flora and unpredictable terrain. Lyra had grown accustomed to the rhythms of human life here, and her skills had become essential to the outpost's operations. Yet the tranquility was not to last. It started with the scanners. Small blips appeared at the edge of the outpost's detection range, shapes moving too fast, too large, and too organized to be native wildlife. Adrian reviewed the readings with furrowed brows. "These aren't animals," he said, his voice calm but tense. "They are organized and they are approaching fast." Lyra leaned over the console, studying the patterns. "They're using some kind of energy-based propulsion," she said. "I've never seen technology like this, but it is not human. It's advanced, dangerous." Adrian nodded. "Exactly. Prepare for a possible attack. Everyone will need to defend the outpost. I want you by my side, Lyra. Your knowledge of alien systems could make the difference between survival and disaster." Lyra felt a surge of adrenaline. This was not just about obedience or survival. It was about proving herself in a real crisis. She met Adrian's gaze. "I am ready," she said firmly. The first wave of the attackers arrived just after dusk. Shadows moved across the rocky plains, sleek ships that hovered silently before unleashing bursts of energy at the outpost's defenses. Humans scrambled to man turrets, repair systems, and protect the living quarters. The outpost shook as the alien weapons struck the outer walls. "Follow me," Adrian shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm. Together they ran to the command center. Lyra's hands flew over the controls, analyzing patterns in the attackers' movements. "Their ships are coordinated," she said. "They are using a hive-like strategy. If we can disrupt their communication, we can slow them down." Adrian nodded. "Do it. I'll organize the defense teams." With a mix of human and Volantrian ingenuity, Lyra began rerouting power to interference modules, adapting alien energy patterns to jam the invaders' coordination. Sparks flew, and the hum of the systems was nearly drowned out by alarms and explosions, but she worked tirelessly. Meanwhile, Adrian led a group of soldiers to the perimeter, using their knowledge of the terrain to create traps and defensive positions. Lyra's instructions were precise and clever, and the humans followed them without hesitation. Slowly, the tide began to shift. Several of the alien ships faltered, their attacks losing accuracy. Despite the chaos, Lyra noticed a small group of attackers attempting to bypass the defenses and strike directly at the habitation module. Without a second thought, she grabbed a portable control pad and ran toward the breach, coordinating human fire and activating defensive shields just in time to prevent catastrophe. Adrian saw her bravery and precision. "Lyra, stay close," he yelled over the noise. "This is dangerous. I can handle it," she shouted back, determination burning in her eyes. The battle raged on for hours. Lyra and Adrian moved as a team, their coordination flawless despite the danger. Every maneuver, every command brought them closer together. The humans began to see her not as an outsider, but as a leader, someone capable of decisive action under pressure. At one point, a blast rocked the command center. Lyra was thrown to the floor, her head spinning, but she scrambled up, checking the systems. Adrian was nearby, fending off a smaller group of attackers who had broken through the outer defenses. "Are you okay?" he shouted. "Yes," she called back. "Systems are stable for now, but they're regrouping."
"We need to act fast,"
Adrian nodded. "Then let's finish this." Using Lyra's strategy, the humans launched a counterattack. They exploited weaknesses in the alien ship's formation, using the terrain to their advantage. Lyra guided the interference modules to disrupt communications, leaving the attackers confused and disorganized. One by one, the ships were forced to retreat, unable to adapt to the unexpected defense. When the battle finally ended, the outpost was battered but intact. Fires smoldered in some areas, and repair crews immediately went to work. Lyra collapsed onto a bench, exhausted but exhilarated. Adrian approached her, his face smeared with soot and dirt, yet his expression was calm and proud. "You did it," he said simply. "You saved lives today. Without your guidance, we would have lost the outpost." Lyra looked at him, chest heaving. I just did what I had to do," she said softly. "You did more than that," Adrian replied. "You led, you adapted, and you showed courage. That is something rare." For the first time, Lyra felt a deep sense of pride, not from her noble birth, but from her actions, from her choice to act despite fear. She realized that bravery was not about obedience or status, but about responsibility and heart. The aftermath of the attack brought both relief and reflection. Humans and Volantrians worked together to repair the outpost. Lyra continued to assist, coordinating technical repairs and teaching some of the younger recruits strategies she had used during the defense. The outpost had survived, but the experience had changed everything. That night, the twin moons of Aurelio shone brightly over the rocky plains. Lyra walked with Adrian to the observation deck. Silence hung between them, filled only by the wind and the distant hum of machinery. "You were incredible today," Adrian said quietly. "I knew you had talent, but seeing it in action, it's something else." Lyra felt her cheeks warm. "I only did what needed to be done," she murmured. Adrian looked at her, his eyes meeting hers. "Sometimes what needs to be done is also what others cannot do. That is why your role mattered." For a long moment they stood side by side, neither speaking. The storm of the day's battle had passed, leaving a clear night sky filled with stars. Lyra felt an unfamiliar connection, a sense that she and Adrian understood each other in ways that words could not fully capture. "Do you ever wonder if humans are all like you?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Adrian smiled faintly. "Some are. Some are not. But I hope experiences like today show that courage and compassion are not limited by species." Lyra considered his words. For the first time, she did not feel the rigid anger she had carried since her arrival. She began to see that humans could be allies, even friends, even, perhaps, something more. Days after the battle, the outpost continued its repairs. Lyra and Adrian worked closely together, sharing strategies, planning defenses, and even exchanging stories of their respective worlds. Their bond deepened, built on respect, admiration, and shared experiences in danger. One afternoon, a young recruit asked Lyra about her home planet. She hesitated, unsure if she should reveal anything. Yet she found herself speaking freely, describing Volantria's spires, art, and traditions. Adrian listened quietly, watching her with interest. "You carry your home with you," he observed. "Even here, far from it, you are still Volantrian. That is part of your strength." Lyra looked at him, touched by the understanding in his words. I suppose I never thought of it that way," she admitted. Adrian nodded. "Strength comes in many forms. You've shown courage in battle, intelligence in strategy, and now, openness in trust. That is rare and it is valuable." Her heart fluttered. She could not name the feeling, but it was more than pride. It was a connection, a spark that grew each time they worked together. Each time they faced danger and survived. One evening, as the moons rose over Aurelios, Lyra found herself on the observation deck alone, staring at the plains. Memories of the attack and the teamwork lingered in her mind. She realized that she had begun to care, not just for the outpost's success, but for the humans, for Adrian. The thought startled her. She had been sent here as a punishment, a captive forced to serve, and yet through courage, respect, and shared trials, she had discovered something unexpected: trust, admiration, and perhaps even a bond that could grow into friendship, or more. She did not yet know what the future held, but one thing was certain. She had faced danger, protected lives, and proven her worth. And for the first time, she felt that she could be more than a prisoner or a pawn. She could be a partner, a force to be reckoned with, and someone capable of shaping the future alongside humans like Adrian Cole. As the night wind swept over the plains and the moons cast their silver light, Lyra made a quiet vow. She would continue to grow, to fight, and to learn. The frontier was dangerous, but she had found strength within herself and a companion beside her, who respected her mind, her courage, and her heart. And in that realization, a new journey began, one not of punishment but of discovery, trust, and the possibility of something extraordinary between two very different worlds. Weeks had passed since the attack on the Aurelios outpost, and the frontier had slowly returned to a fragile calm. The outpost was repaired, systems humming reliably, and the personnel had adapted to the challenges of life on this harsh planet. Lyra had changed more than anyone could have expected. Once defiant and wary, she had grown into a respected member of the team, admired for her intelligence, courage, and resourcefulness. Yet even with the calm restored, questions lingered in her mind. She had arrived as a punishment, a captive sent to serve under humans, but the events of the past weeks had shifted something deep within her. She had faced danger alongside humans, had made life-saving decisions, and had earned the respect of those who once saw her as a foreign outsider. And most of all, she had come to know Captain Adrian Cole, not as a conqueror but as a man of principle, courage, and kindness. One morning, a communication arrived from Volantria. The council demanded a review of Lyra's status. She could return home restored to honor and given her freedom, or she could remain on Aurelios, a bridge between humans and her people. The message was clear. This was her choice. Lyra read the words alone, her mind racing. Returning home meant reclaiming her status and pride, the life she had known before the war. But she had changed. She could not return to Valantria unchanged. Not after witnessing the courage and kindness of humans. Not after standing alongside Adrian in the defense of the outpost. She sought Adrian in the command center. He looked up from his console, surprised to see her approach. "Lyra," he said, sensing the weight of her expression. "What is it? I received a message from Valantria," she said, her voice quiet. "They are offering me freedom. I can return home as a hero." Adrian's expression remained calm, but his eyes held a mixture of curiosity and understanding. "And what do you feel?" he asked gently. Lyra hesitated. Her mind flashed back to the battles, the teamwork, the quiet moments under the moons of Aurelios. She thought of the humans who had come to respect her, the young recruits who had looked to her for guidance, and of Adrian, who had treated her not as a slave, but as an equal. I do not know," she admitted. "Part of me longs for home, for what I once had. But another part of me has grown attached to this place, to the people here, to you." Adrian stepped closer, his expression softening. "I will not try to influence your decision," he said. "You must choose freely. But whatever you decide, know that I respect you and your courage. You have earned it, not because of who you were born as, but because of who you are." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest, a feeling she could no longer ignore. She realized that her anger and defiance had been replaced by admiration, trust, and something deeper, something that might one day grow into love. She thought of the outpost, the people she had come to respect, and the possibility of building a new life, not as a prisoner but as a partner, a bridge between two worlds. The decision weighed heavily on her, but by evening she had made up her mind. She would stay on Aurelios, not as a servant, not as a captive, but as someone who had found purpose, friendship, and respect among humans, and she would remain by Adrian's side not out of obligation but by choice. The next day she addressed the council from a secure communication link. "Honorable leaders of Valantria," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I am grateful for the opportunity to return home. But I have chosen to remain on Aurelios, to continue my work with the humans and to build a future that honors both our peoples. This is my decision, made freely, with respect for all." There was silence on the line, followed by nods of understanding and respect. Though not all were pleased, her choice was accepted. Lyra felt a sense of liberation she had never known before. Adrian stood beside her as the message ended. "You've made a brave choice," he said softly. "And I am proud of you." Lyra looked at him, meeting his eyes. "I did not choose this lightly," she said. "But I have learned something important. Freedom is not just the absence of control. Freedom is the ability to make choices that reflect your values, your courage, and your heart." Adrian smiled. "Then it seems we are both fortunate. I see your strength every day, Lyra, and I am glad you are here." Weeks turned into months and life at the outpost continued. Lyra became an ambassador of sorts, fostering understanding between humans and visiting Valantrians. She used her knowledge of both cultures to mediate conflicts, teach lessons, and demonstrate the value of cooperation and respect. Her relationship with Adrian grew naturally, built on shared experience, mutual respect, and quiet moments of understanding. They trained together, planned missions, and often walked the observation decks under the twin moons, speaking of life, values, and dreams. Trust had become admiration. Admiration had grown into fondness, and fondness had blossomed into love. One evening, after a long day of repairs and planning, Adrian approached Lyra as she gazed over the rocky plains. "Lyra," he said softly, "I want to ask you something. Not as a commander, not as a human, but as someone who respects and admires you." She turned to him, curiosity and anticipation mingling in her eyes. "Will you marry me?" he asked, holding her hand gently. "Not because it is expected, not because it is convenient, but because I want to share my life with you. To face challenges together, to celebrate victories, and to build a future based on trust and love." Lyra's eyes widened, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. She thought of her journey, the anger, the punishment, the challenges, and the battles. She thought of the humans she had come to respect and of Adrian, who had treated her as an equal, seen her courage, and valued her mind and heart. A smile spread across her face, warm and genuine. "Yes," she said softly, "I will marry you. Not out of obligation, not out of duty, but because I choose to, because I trust you and because I care for you." Adrian's expression lit up and he pulled her into a gentle embrace. The twin moons of Aurelios cast silver light over them, as if blessing their union. It was not a marriage born of tradition or convenience, but of choice, respect, and love, a bond that would bridge two worlds. The ceremony was simple, attended by humans, Volantrians who had accepted her decision, and a few other allied species. Lyra wore a gown made from Aurelios fabrics, elegant and understated, while Adrian stood proudly beside her in his uniform. They exchanged vows of trust, courage, and partnership, promising to support one another through challenges, celebrate victories, and face the unknown together. As they spoke their vows, Lyra felt a sense of peace she had never known. She was free, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. She had faced punishment, danger, and uncertainty, yet she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to build a new future. After the ceremony, the newlyweds walked hand in hand across the observation deck. The moons reflected in their eyes and the horizon stretched endlessly before them. Lyra thought of Volantria, of her past and of the journey that had brought her here. She realized that courage, intelligence, and a willingness to understand others had not only saved lives, but had allowed her to find love and purpose. Adrian spoke first, breaking the silence. "The future is uncertain," he said, "but as long as we face it together, I believe we can overcome anything." Lyra nodded. "Yes," she said. "Together we can build a future where humans and Volantrians understand each other, where courage and respect matter more than pride or prejudice." And so on the frontier world of Aurelios, an alien noblewoman and a human captain began a new life, not as conqueror and captive, but as partners, friends, and ultimately as husband and wife. Their story became a symbol of trust, courage, and the possibility of harmony between very different worlds. In the weeks and months that followed, the outpost thrived under their leadership. Lyra continued her work as an ambassador, using her experiences to teach others that understanding, respect, and courage could bridge even the deepest divides. Humans and Volantrians alike came to admire her wisdom, her bravery, and the partnership she had forged with Adrian. And at night, when the twin moons rose over the rocky plains, Lyra and Adrian would walk together hand in hand, knowing that the greatest victories were not only those won in battle, but those won in the heart. For Lyra, the journey had begun as a punishment, but it ended as a triumph of courage, trust, and love. And in the quiet light of Aurelios, she knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, she would face them not as a captive, not as a pawn, but as a partner, a hero in her own right, and as someone who had found a home and a family among humans she had once feared. The moons shone brightly that night, and for the first time in a long while, Lyra felt completely at peace. She had been given a choice, and she had chosen wisely. She had been sent as punishment, but she had found freedom. She had been placed in the hands of a human, yet she had found love. And she had discovered something that no punishment or war could take away, the power to shape her own destiny.